Guys, can you ask that question again? I didn't turn on the recording.
Okay, motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Okay, and so can we go back to the top, Laura or Teresa?
Right.
Yes, I would like everyone to take note of the determination to continue to hold meetings virtually. I'm not going to read that whole thing, but just please take note of that.
Safety first.
All right, we will start off with general public comments. Do we have any?
Can I stop the share?
Yep.
Yes,
I do have one.
go ahead, Lizzie.
Yes. Hello, everyone again. Just wanted to thank the board, at least the partial board, for supporting the letter that we sent to Carly Katona regarding the implementation of the Slow Streets Phase 2. I received a response from Ms. Katona on Friday advising me that Mary Jones would be taking care of communicating with LADOT. She did that. I talked to her over the phone this morning, and she mentioned that she had had a conversation with Kevin Ocubillo, our liaison at the LADOT, and supposedly they are moving us up on the list, which should have been the case since our plan was approved months ago. They are very tentatively saying that implementation might occur in March, but they are not giving us 100% guarantee on that. So our current agreement is that we expect a weekly update from Mr. Ocubillo, and we'll go from that, and hopefully we'll get the work done. So thank you again.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you.
Any other public comments?
I think Tori just entered the room to make a comment. I'm not sure if she's fully in yet.
I'm here.
Did you-
I'm here, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Did you have a public comment?
Oh, well, just remind everyone that the homeless count is on the 24th at Exposition Park this time for 6:30 p.m. It says 8 o'clock on these flyers, but I'll be there early so we can get everything situated. But so 24th, next Thursday, Exposition Park, right behind, in the circle behind Bank of the West Stadium.
Laura, if we wanted something to go out to our stakeholders, who would it go to?
No, that's why I raised my hand to say in discussion with Tori and the gal who's doing the outreach and communications for LASA, I am going to send a standalone e-blast. I just sent an e-blast on our next 2 meetings. So that means I'm able to send another e-blast sometime either late tomorrow night or more likely Thursday morning. And so we'll do a standalone with they've sent me the links so that people can sign up for our count at Exposition Park and not random. Well, I mean, they can do whatever they want. And I can then follow that up again. Tori, what is the latest date for people?
No, it doesn't
signing
matter.
up?
It could be up to the day. It doesn't matter as long as they,
Okay.
you know, take a look at the video, the training, hopefully. But
So
I'll go over it again that day.
So I can do 2, and I have the artwork. I mean, they've provided me that information.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, I
Thank
thought you were giving it to Raheem for the communications.
Or Lizzie, well, I'm not doing the face, okay. Lizzie's got her hand up and she's doing the Facebook and Nextdoor. I'm doing the MailChimp, and Raheem's the only one of all of this group who has Instagram. We don't, I mean, other people do, but none of us do have our.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
All
So
right.
Tori, I usually post on Facebook and then I copy and paste into other neighborhood Facebook groups.
Oh,
Right.
good.
And And just to let you know, in addition to the video, there is also a training webinar.
Right.
My brother and I attended it, and
Oh, good.
Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
sent
it
out
gives additional information.
Right.
Oh,
We-
good.
Yeah,
More
they
detailed
gave me
info.
all of that to send out.
Mhm.
Public comment,
Yeah.
not public comment discussion, okay?
Right,
So
right.
we're gonna get the information out. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Not seeing none? The minute's up. Can we move on? We're moving on to executive committee business. 4A, discussion of Amazing Grace Conservatory Sharp Sugar Hill Arts Revival Project Festival event. And the presenter is Laura.
Oh, the whole presenters, Laura. Well, I think Greg has also presentation and Lizzie also has presentation. So,
Okay.
yeah. So in other words, this is on the agenda because there's so many things going on. So I'm not sure where we start. I feel where we start would be with a status report on the status of our application. Greg's been busy doing stuff. I've been busy doing stuff. Billy Green is doing stuff. So I don't know, maybe Greg should start and then I'll supplement. Billy's not here. Yep, but Greg is muted.
Greg?
On the, my apologies. On the issue of submitting the event request that has been submitted, the funding people have requested an additional form to move forward with that. That form is the form to close the streets or the street permit or whatever that form is. They requested that form so that they can move forward with the request. So that's part one. So if there is a form, I know that Billy was explaining the entire process, but for the funding people, they just want a copy of the form with the information that we're requesting street closures. And then once I submit that, then supposedly they can move forward with the request. That's part one. Any comments or questions on that?
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, two things. Do they want, since Billy has responded now 3 times saying the council office is doing it, it's not a form, it's a motion, blah, blah, blah. Is there an actual form that the city clerk has that we could just then fill out and say Council District 10 is doing this, here's the map of what's being closed? Is that what they want to know?
I do not know. I did not know there was such a form.
Yeah, I don't think there really is.
I was asking for the form because that's what they asked for. So now I can go back and say, my people say there isn't a form. What else do you want?
Right,
And-
because I, Laura, as you know, have also been trying to get them to, do a walkabout and let's map the street that's physically where is the closure. So that
Yes.
is, if that would satisfy Shauna, along with some confirmation email from CD10, let's do it that way. Show them the map of the closure and an email from Kamani Black, because he's the one handling it.
Billy
If that
also
would
said-
suffice.
Well, I don't know.
I know.
Billy also said you were completing the form. She said,
No,
Lois,
Laura, a woman named Lauren. That's not me. There's a Lauren involved in this. She works for the Sentinel doing events, and she's
Okay.
part of the team, not
okay,
Laura.
well, she said somebody with an LAU.
Yes.
That was you.
LAU, ER, no, REN.
Okay. She
Lauren.
said she said that person was completing the form.
Correct, with
So,
Billy, yes, for Kamani, yes. Too many
So-
people, but it's a good thing.
All right, so,
Okay, was there another part, Greg?
yes, well, I'm still not, I need to say what I'm gonna do on this part. One, if there is indeed no form, tomorrow I will say, There's no form. What else do you want besides the form? Okay, that's one part. Then the other part that we were funding the porta potties, and we were funding, the request for it was for us to fund the stage. So what I did was I submitted a request to the city, to CD10, for the porta potties and the stage, and CD10 said, yeah, we have those. So I did that so that if we can get things in kind, that would free up money to do other things. So CD10 will provide the porta potties and they will provide the stage.
Yeah.
Laura indicated in the email that there's other things. And my thought on that's like, okay, well, then my part was like, that's what they requested of us. And if they
Right.
wanted more stuff, then they could submit for the other stuff.
Right. Well, Greg,
Because-
I think,
Wait a minute.
no, go ahead.
My part was like, be not frugal, but be be responsible with our money. And if we could, instead of giving the money to buy something or rent something, if we can get it from CD10 or some other organization that would just donate it, then that's what I'm going to do. But if they wanted other stuff, then yeah, that should have been brought up before I submitted the request, because I said I'm going to try to get stuff for free a couple of weeks ago.
But wait a minute, though. I remember that conversation, but that was not instead of
Right.
UNNC doing the funding request. If
Right.
you got the freebie of the stage and the porta potties, could we not reallocate that money to something else? I mean,
Right.
it's not that we're going to give it back to us. That wouldn't be right.
Right. So,
Well-
and Greg, well, I wanted to say something, but go ahead and say more.
Well, you could have gone first, but I mean, she asked the question to be someone else.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, in my mind, when the way I'm thinking is that when we receive a request, my statement was, I will try to get the stuff for free so we wouldn't have to spend our money. That is not what we voted on, though. I'm just telling you what I was thinking.
Okay.
That's what we voted on. What we voted on, and which I didn't insist that we do it a certain way, but what we voted on is that, yeah, I will go try to find the items for free, but we did say that we would have money for the event. But on the request, the funding request is specifically for paying for the items. So it's not just a general donation. So our money is earmarked for the city to pay for the rental. So if we are not going to pay for the rental, then we need to change our request that we've submitted, because the city is going to cut a check to the vendor for the items. And if we don't have a vendor that needs the money, then it's an entirely different request. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's it. So that's everything I have on that project.
I
Okay,
knew
now
that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen.
may I say something, please?
I'm done.
Laura, and then
Yeah. So, okay, so technically what we actually voted on was to spend $1,000 to up to $1,000 to support event operations such as rentals. And the they put on the funding request, such as that was the porta potty and the stage, which, by the way, those combined actually be closer to $1,500, is that initially we were told, obviously you got a different answer, Greg, is those two items could not be covered by CD10. So we were trying to identify items that CD10 would not cover. maybe a generator. But I mean, we're just trying to find where we could give money to a vendor up to $1,000. That's not something CD10 would cover. So CD10 you applied for these two things will cover it. But my concern today was simply that we need to get the full list of rentals into the request to CD10 and find out what they can't cover. But our approved item was up to $1,000 for operations such as rentals. I guess that's what to say. And I understand that you're trying to save our money, but what I'm worried about is if CD10 now says, oh, well, we already agreed to do that, we're not going to do the others. And that would far exceed the $1,000, the other items. So we need to collaborate and coordinate them if they're not just on our own send in random requests to CD10. The other concern I had was in Shauna's email where she said she would prefer, I think she said, because there's so many threads going on, that why doesn't Amazing Grace just invoice us for $1,000 and we write a check? Because we can't do a split credit card. I'm like, I'm never understanding why she says we can't buy 500 here and 500 there if we approved 1,000. It makes no sense to me. But I'm also concerned, my reading of the form, just this submission of it required either Paul's or my signature on it. And I guess I'm glad that they accepted it just on yours. But are we going to get bitten in the butt because weeks from now, some supervisor is going to say, wait, it wasn't signed by Paul or Laura, the second signers, because it says treasurer plus second signer or chair. And so I'm a little concerned about that. I'm more concerned that we make sure we know what all the rentals are. I think, again, that woman, Lauren, is the one who's making the list of the rentals, and just identify what can be handled by CD10, because they're going to need a generator or two, the tents, the chairs, the tables, extension cords, amplifiers. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are going to be needed, and not necessarily all of them can be covered by CD10. So that's why we set $1,000 towards operations.
Okay, can we hold it for a minute, Laura? Because I have a couple of questions based on what you said. But Tori, you have your hand up?
I was just gonna ask, where will the UNNC booth be positioned, and can we give away pens and things like we did before? And what's the actual date and time?
I can handle some of that.
Laura?
Yeah, most likely pretty close to Grace Yu's house, which is 1856 Wilton
Yeah, I
Place.
know where it is.
Yeah, and the reason is that we'll be staging items at her house, so the lesser walk we have to take, the better. But I'm saying that, but that would be actually up to the folks at Amazing Grace and Sharp if we get the cushy location. And it's April 9th. It's April 9th, and Lizzie has a whole report about what we're giving away or not, I assume.
Okay, we're not ready yet, Lizzie. So back to you, Laura and Greg. So we got the porta potty and we got the stage from CD10.
Right.
Our motion was such as, the wording was such as, according to you. So that's telling me that it doesn't have to be another funding request, Greg, that we can purchase something else or rent something else for them.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me pull up the BAC.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm just gonna, I can post what the BAC said, but I'll need to post what the actual agenda item had been too, because it said as you see in the agenda. So here's the BAC copy. See how it says as described in the agenda. And now I have to find the agenda, which I just had a moment ago. This posting might be a little messy, so I'm going to put it in Notepad first because I'm pulling it off a PDF. Sorry.
Can you just share it for the time being?
Oh, well, I could. I'm sorry.
I thought that's what you were doing.
No, I was sorry. I was putting information in the share, in the chat. But here we go. Can you see that?
Not yet.
There we go. So what I put in the chat was the final BAC language. And what you see here, it says as it's in the agenda, and here's the agenda item. So it'd be right this part. Oops.
Such as rentals. Okay, I think we're good on this. Greg, how does it seem to you?
Hold on, is it? hold
Yeah.
on.
It's right here. I just, for some reason, can't get my now to, yeah. But the information on my end telling me I'm screen sharing is hiding where I could change the color of the type or highlight it.
Well, it says
It's highlighted. We see it.
the
It's
request
clear.
is for UNNC to take a partnership sponsorship role for the event and for up to $1,000 to help support event operations such as rentals. So
Right.
it wasn't specific. So is the
Right.
BAC different?
The
Motion
BAC,
for executive to fund $1,000 in support partnership for blah, 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 for the event festival. That's the BAC, but in the request, the funding document, the event request, it lists what we're paying for. And so that's-
because, yes, Greg, because they were trying to identify items that originally CD10 said they could not pay for. So obviously you got a different answer, but that funding request, you edited it, is that correct?
What do you mean I edited it?
Well, you sent us an email saying you had edited it and removed that from the funding request.
I don't recall saying I edited the funding request.
Okay, wait. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
This was the funding request, and it says operations such as rentals. So what was the actual motion, and what was on the BAC?
The motion was the motion for executive committee to fund $1,000 in support and partnership the Amazing Grace Conservatory in the event festival as described in the agenda.
Right.
Moved by Teresa, second by Corinne.
Right.
Okay, so then what was on the BAC?
That was the BAC.
That's the
Okay,
BAC.
That's the
So then that
BAC.
tells me that we're good. It's not a second request.
Right. Yeah, Dolores, what happened is they filled out, meaning the coalition filled out in essentially draft form, there's event paperwork, there's a form, and they had filled it out. So they identified these two items, but it wasn't we didn't vote on the form. We voted on what we voted on. So
Okay, so to now get aligned and focused, what's our position now? What can we do now to resolve this issue?
well, I think what we need to do is get a final list of all the things they need to rent, every single thing, which I think they have. Ask CD10 how much of that, not just the two items, how much of that they can cover. If it's then 100%, what Greg's preference is that we then not spend any money, but I feel like there's still other operational costs. The toilet paper for the porta potties. I mean, in other words, putting on an event like this, there's just lots of costs for operations. And I personally feel we should continue on the path of the up to. Shauna seems to have indicated that it would be better if they just invoice us for $1,000. The only problem with that is then it's guaranteed to be $1,000. You know, if it was really, if the only thing that's not covered was, again, I'm making this up, a generator, and it's only $560 for the generator, then we wouldn't have to spend $1,000. I just think we have more homework to do, but I think we have an openness to doing it. I'm not understanding if it is the clerk that's saying they want to know exactly everything right this second. I thought the 60 days was to allow us time for them to ask questions and us give them answers.
Boy.
Right.
Here's my concern. My concern is that this discussion is talking about the work that it doesn't even seem to be our work. This seems to be the work of that committee. Our part, I thought, was just to say, you requested money from us and we're giving you money. It seems like we are actually going into planning their event and working out the details of their event. And
We are, Greg. We are in part. In part.
Well, yeah, our part is to give them the money that they need to do their stuff. And then our part is like, if we're partnering with them, then like we're doing outreach, then we go and we help set up. Or if we say we're going to volunteer, but this discussion is like, we're re-looking at the request to submit something to CD10. And I'm like, that's a committee, that's their committee's work to do. And for us to be discussing what should be on their request does not seem to be our area. And not that it's not nice to do, it's all nice that we're doing all this stuff, but it doesn't seem to be, it seemed to be morphing from what we started with, because I submitted the request to get those items. Now that's being morphed into, well, let's look at what else they want. No, the only reason I submitted that request was to say, well, let's try to be good stewards of the money that we have. We can get it some other way. But now that's turned to something else. So I'm not really following that too well.
Teresa?
Thank you, Dolores. My understanding is that we are a co-sponsor, so I have no problem with if Laura wants to invest her personal time in helping them have the best event they can. I remember, the way I remember it is, yes, Greg, you were going to reach out to get a stage and porta potties, but we also voted for up to $1,000 to help them with other rental, and to me, other operational costs, and that included any ancillary, items they may need. So I feel like we're giving them up to $1,000. We haven't put on a lot of events. It's the first one. Let's try to help them the best way we can, and let's move on to the next thing. And maybe we don't all need to be involved in all the minutia like Laura is, but certainly we should try to support them. And we've already allocated the money. So let's, just move on, especially since we followed the BAC correctly and all of the other, legalities of how we have to fund money.
Before we get too far off course, the item also says discussion of outreach efforts and potential additional funding. Well, we talked about that, but Lizzie, you want to talk about outreach?
Well, I'm sorry, Dolores, could I just say one more thing? Because there was a slight change in the description of the event that I need to share with everyone. And I have followed up. So
can we let Lizzie do that first and then
oh,
come
sure,
back?
then that's fine too.
It seems like the discussion is
Okay.
ongoing. Is Lizzie
Okay.
still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You want to talk about outreach, Lizzie?
Yes, so for outreach, we agreed that we would be giving away 100, I believe, 100 bags of the paper ones, which we will be purchasing. similar to the ones that we gave away at the Ciclevia event. And they will be filled with different things that both information and then some swag. So I have reached out to Gibson, our NEA, and he told me he would be coordinating with me this week to bring stuff to my, to my front yard and leave it there. So I will be following up with him. There's also a postcard / mailer that the communications committee is finishing up. That would also be part of the package. Environmental committee is looking into maybe donating, giving away seeds for milkweed planting to help the butterfly population. Public safety, maybe a can opener. I am also taking care of reaching out to Department of Sanitation for bulky item pickup.
Flyers.
Then the magnets, I've been checking the numbers and most of them are still current. There's maybe one or two that have changed numbers, but I think it's fine. Even the city website, the numbers are not all correct. So I think it would be really a waste if we have so many of them. So I think it is still a good thing for neighbors to have. The good neighbor laws, I did some research on that. It seems that comes from the attorney, prosecuting attorney's office, but I haven't seen a current flyer or information. The links that I got, that I found, were from 6 years ago. So I'm still looking into that.
Can you ask Deering,
Who?
our neighborhood prosecutor, Deering? Can you ask her? about-
No, but I can ask
Oh, okay.
Nicole Deering.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, back to you, Laura.
Well,
You're
right, so,
welcome. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Was there something else, Lizzie?
No,
Yeah, so,
Okay.
thank you.
so two
Thank you.
things, and I'll stick on outreach for a second. Where do we do this? At the Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee meeting last night, they did not end up requesting funds to create a tchotchke with an imprint, right? So not a can opener, not a flashlight, not that. But they did have a long discussion about essentially things on paper that could be added to the bag or on the tables. Whether that be flyers and brochures they pick up and then print labels on it, saying UNNC wants everyone to be prepared, or, with our logo or something, it's not quite clear. And they did pass a motion to request up to $500 for printing that they may need to do for this effort. So Dolores, where do you want to deal with that? It would be okay on this agenda, but right now I'm still reporting. So should we just, or what? Or Teresa, or what?
If they want to request funds, as we mentioned last night, they need to be here. We have set the standard. Communications had to come to executive, even though they wanted to go directly to the board. If you want funds for your committee, you have to come to the meeting. And we mentioned that to them last night. So I feel if they did not submit the form to you, Laura, you said there was a form, they didn't submit the form to you, then sorry, they have to wait to the next meeting.
That's a
Unless-
little, yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
as you know, as we all know, that will be too late. So, well, you're saying, but what we're trying to accomplish in this situation is having good materials to hand out at the first opportunity for outreach that we've had. So I'm going to set that aside. Right now I'm reporting. I'm just reporting, and we can get back to this in terms of acting if we are going to act, and we'll let Dolores, our chair, decide that. The other report I wanted to, I'm just trying to report. Just trying to report.
Is this about your report about Amazing Grace?
Yes, I'm trying very hard to update you guys on another piece of this. When the other piece of it
We've been
is,
on this for half an hour. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, the other piece of it is that Jackie from Amazing Grace did an initial conversation with the Hollywood Community Housing Foundation, and I had a long conversation with the executive director today. That's the apartments on the east side of this. And what they're going to do is actually open the community room and the plaza and the kitchen and those bathrooms as well. I'm not sure I want to say yes to the bathrooms to this event. So I will deal with the other entity that's providing all the insurance to bring, that has to be looped in. But they would happily take the community cube that our communications committee is doing if we want them to put it right on that open plaza, or we might want it right up in front of our booth. I mean, in other words, that pending, but they would be happy for it to be there. And they are basically telling the tenants who live there that if you take your car out that day, don't plan on bringing it back until the event is over. They do not want to have a lane allowing them to move in and out. So they can leave their cars or remove them, but once they're gone, they can't bring them back. So that's a plus. But anyway, so there's one more partner in this at this point. So that was what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Laura. Teresa? You're muted.
Yes, sorry. No, I'm going to wait until we have further discussion. I'm done with Amazing Grace.
Okay, but we're not done with Amazing Grace. So where are we with as far as the funding requests go and what Dunn needs? Greg?
Okay, so let me tell you what I think I will run into as based upon this discussion. The funding people look at all the forms that we provide to them, and the form that we provided to them did list specifically that UNNC was paying $1,000 for rental. So I am still of the opinion, but I will check, that we need to change the forms that we sent in, because we were convinced that we didn't need to change it because the BAC was saying we were just supporting it in general. But again, when the clerk is looking at our requests, they look at the BAC, which authorize it, and then they look at the other forms, which lists what we're paying for. And our forms list specifically what we're paying for. So I will ask them, can we, do we need to submit a different form? Or can we just make it in general? Or can we put an addendum in for just general support?
And instead of asking, do we need a different form on the outset, can you ask first if what we submitted is okay? And then if they got conversation about that, then you can ask, all right, what is it in addition to what we've already submitted do you need to complete this process?
I don't understand. Okay, it is okay for them to cut a check for the vendor, because we list a specific vendor that was going to receive the funds. So
you mean the forms that the organization submitted?
That was also included in the package. It lists a specific vendor to receive the funds that we were supplying.
So can we then ask them, since CD10 is covering those things that were listed, how can we support this organization?
Yeah,
with the money that we have voted on?
We're saying the same thing. And so I need to hold that conversation, say, we don't need the money for this now, but can we use it for some other thing? And she's going to, I'm more than likely sure that she's going to.
Greg, can we just ask the question of them? I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through this agenda, and it's going into an hour. Okay, so to just where we're at right now is that you're going to go back to Dunn and say, what was listed in our paperwork is already covered. Can we then use the money that we voted on to support the organization in a different way? I
Sure.
guess we're saying the same thing, but in a different way. Is that it?
We're saying the exact same thing.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
You're welcome, Dolores.
Laura?
Yeah, and I still have the question, did they consider this a final application or a review since it wasn't signed by the second officer anyway?
Can he
I
just
I
ask
don't,
that question?
well,
Can you
I've
just
not,
ask that
I have
question?
not seen the submission and I mean, none of us have. So I don't know if the clerk is reviewing this as a draft or if this is a final. Because if it's a draft, we just change the draft and then sign it. If it's a final,
What are you talking about?
Okay.
Why would they not be looking at it as a final?
because it
It's-
wasn't signed by either Paul or myself, it requires the two signatures
I have signatures on stuff, I think.
at the bottom of the form.
Okay.
It's-
it's-
yeah. So they were gonna send it back to us anyways, I think, or maybe not, maybe they don't care.
Let's go.
Okay, moving on. So is the pleasure of this group that we not vote on the environmental committee's request, but rather, since Lizzie still has copying funds, use the existing copying funds that we voted on some while ago and hope for the best?
It
What-
wasn't
what-
environmental. You mean emergency preparedness?
I do mean
talking
that. I'm
about-
so sorry.
We're talking
I
about-
do mean emergency. I mean public safety and emergency preparedness. I mean, I know the pleasure of the group is to get going on the agenda, but is that the pleasure at the moment? Or
Is that still on
is
A?
the pleasure,
Is
Yes,
Is
we're,
this the
hold it one at a time, please.
yeah,
Yes,
or is the pleasure to go ahead and let them fill out their paperwork requesting up to $500 and take it straight to board without a recommendation from us?
I don't, for what?
They would like funds, it wouldn't be limited to this event, to
Point of
be able
protocol,
to
point of
print.
protocol.
Teresa, come on, point of order here. Come, point of order, please. What were you saying, Laura?
The committee, the Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee, would like to have up to $500 in funding to make copies of a lot of different emergency preparedness materials, including a UNNC branded one that's, you know, what you should have in advance of an emergency, a handout. And they did not fill out the application for that request, as Teresa has pointed out, today, during the course of today, even though we told them they need, and they're not here, told them they need to be here. So the question is, do we just say, forget it? Do we just say, tell them to ask Lizzie if they need any help because she has monies for printing? Or do we go ahead and allow them to agendize it for governing board, but without a recommendation from us, noting that the protocol is not being followed?
No, all funding requests are supposed to come through the executive committee.
I'm just presenting options.
Okay, if you're presenting that to the executive committee on their behalf, that's fine, but that should have been on the agenda, first of all.
Okay.
Secondly,
I
there needed to be some paperwork, and if you wanted to fill out the paperwork while we were having the meeting, that would have been fine, but it's not on the agenda.
fine. I got an answer. And that's the answer.
Okay, Teresa?
Well, I'd like to make the comment that at the public safety emergency preparedness meeting last night, Laura specifically said that she and I would not advocate for the funding that they're requesting. They would have to do that. They'd have to submit the paperwork or come to the meeting. I'm not saying I don't want to give them the money. I think what they wanted, the documents they want to print would be helpful to our community. I just feel like we made communications come to executive. We wouldn't allow them to circumvent and go directly to the board. So if we have a process, then it has to be followed by everybody. That's the fair thing, I believe.
Okay, thank you. So we're done with
We're done.
4A. We've already discussed that, both sides of it, and Greg is going to go back to Dunn with some information or gather some more information. So let's move on to B, UNNC bylaws revisions, update and schedule the bylaws ad hoc committee. Laura?
Right, right. So, and I apologize to all for that long nattering public comments thing that I had to do to comply with our current bylaws. So I'm going to try and share the screen. What the process is for in our UNNC bylaws, our current bylaws, in order to make a revision to the bylaws, either a board member or a stakeholder is to, during public comment, kind of run through the things that they're proposing to change the bylaws. Then we transmit that to the secretary in advance of the next board meeting, and the secretary has all the changes on the agenda. And then at the next board meeting, so in our case, the next board meeting is March 3rd, and the one after that is April 7th, we are able to vote. So what I have here, I've just yellow highlighted the areas that we've been talking about for close to a year now, of things that are confusing, need changing, if, you know, just stuff that needs revision. And one of them is, I highlighted in yellow the existing bylaws section, and then I've got in red the definition of stakeholder. This is everything I read out loud at the meeting. Definition of stakeholder does not align with the bylaws document. See the highlighted sections above and below. So those two yellow highlights don't say the same thing. They're defining at large stakeholder. And then again, we had trouble, Dolores knows this in particular, the unexcused absences, and then I highlighted the word regular board meetings. And then any meeting of the board shall constitute a meeting. So those two things don't agree with each other. So that if you have more than 3 unexcused absences from regular board meetings, then we can move to remove you, except for the next sentence says, any meeting shall constitute a meeting. So the city attorney said a regular board meeting is only one that is on the actual first Thursday of a month. And if it's on any other night, it's not a regular board meeting. So that's a problem, because we may commonly miss the first Thursday of January or the first Thursday of July, depending on when the 4th of July or New Year's is. It's a very common thing where we change those 2 meeting nights over the years. I mean, I've been around, 19, 20 years. And then, which is true, it's at any meeting or just regular meetings that a person can't miss. So I put in red, there's a lack of clarity about all of this. Should we instead say regular or specially scheduled monthly meetings of the board, not including emergency meetings or other special meetings? I don't know. There's also a lack of clarity also within that, why we are counting both unexcused and consecutive absences. They're not the same thing. And we could have answers, but I'm just pointing out what needs clarification. And scrolling further, the whole description of what the signatory's job is wrong. It's not at all what's true today. So we need to revise that. I mean, in other words, signatory does not make all of UNNC's expenditures. Signatory does not write checks, and does not maintain all orderly receipts or invoices for all transactions, because the payment system is different now than when this was written. So we probably need to rewrite that. The next item is when we do the selection of officers, and our bylaws say it's at the first meeting following elections. Well, we already have a problem because elections are every 2 years, but we elect officers every year. So that's a conflict. And now Don has made it a new policy that no matter when the elections are, the new boards, all of them are seated on July 1st of any given year. So we could have an election in March, but could not elect officers. And based on our bylaws, we could elect officers right after that, but they're not going to be seated until July. And the other thing is in my years on this board, there have been many times, or at least sometimes, when we did not select officers in July, that instead we did it in September or more often on August. So the question is, how do we fix this language to at least fix the problem of we do it annually, but our bylaws in effect would say we do it every other year because we do it after elections. And the main thing that needs to be fixed is this method of doing bylaws changes, because it's just stupidity that we have to have it read out loud in a public comment section. Then a month later, we go to a board meeting, and then a month after that, we can vote on it, assuming we're ready to vote on it. And so in the template that Dunn has provided now to change, for people to do bylaws revisions, the way we do it is not even close to either template option 1 or template option 2. So, so again, I would strongly recommend that we eliminate the part about you have to do it in public comment, but allow stakeholders to do it in public comment. Last, not least, is the whole thing about training. We have been struggling with changing our standing rules because all the things that Greg in particular, but a lot of us want, which is shorten the time frame for people to be required to take their training and what are the consequences. We can't change the standing rules because it's in conflict with our bylaws. So that was the other section. So in terms of schedule, and I can send this to everybody, and especially also the people who have volunteered to be on an ad hoc committee. I should add, Dorit also asked that we do something in the bylaws that would allow to have consent calendars, but there's nothing in our bylaws that disallows consent calendars. I think that's more of a question of Dunn. What is the methodology to allow for consent calendars? And that'd be in our standing rules, because the bylaws are fine on it already. I mean, they say nothing about it, so I think it would be fine. I'm going to stop the share. So anyway, the question would be, can we start the ad hoc committee meetings before the March 3rd board meeting, where essentially Teresa would present, well, the secretary would post these recommended changes. Can we start meeting before that?
Who's on the committee?
Greg, me, we had said Nancy. Ugh, is it in your minutes, Teresa? I don't have it at the top of my head. There were a couple other.
Sure, I don't know.
Dorit was on it. And I see Greg's asked the very same question. And when are they scheduled to meet? So I'm asking the question, can we start meeting before March 3rd? Or do you think we need to wait till the board even agrees on any of this?
Greg has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg.
And now Greg's muted.
I thought the purpose of the committee was to develop the revisions to bring to the board, not just have the board. Yeah, so something's missing. So the committee needs to meet to go over it and then to come up with the revisions and then bring that to the board. So that was, I thought we would have had a meeting already, since we talked about this in our last general meeting. We do need to meet soon.
Yeah, I'm strongly advocating that we change, if nothing else changes, that we change this stupid end clause of our bylaws that sets up this onerous method of changing the bylaws. I mean, it just seems so stupid. I agree. I think we should meet and finesse, because obviously what I said out loud at the meeting was not actual language. So I agree, if everybody else does, that we should meet and finesse the language and see if there's anything else. Now, I will say we will not meet Dunn's deadline. We're going to miss it by a week. And I'm going to argue very strongly that they had originally said April 15, and they just changed it to be April 1st. But we won't be able to make that strong argument if what we're trying to do is change the bylaws such that it would change anything that would be for election, meaning how the boundaries are for regions or anything like that. There's a strict April 1st deadline on that. So far, we've only talked about sort of technical revisions to
Okay.
fix conflicts.
Okay, so we met when, the 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, when did we meet?
The
In the
3rd of
June board.
March, 3rd of March.
3rd of February, no. When
Well,
did
we
meet
met the
last time?
3rd of February. If we
Okay,
follow the bylaws, we do nothing until after the 3rd of March, but then that's really collapsing it too short. So that's my question for everybody. I would like to meet in advance.
Okay. Excuse me, Dolores, if I may.
Teresa?
Thank you. It's an ad hoc committee, so there's a little more flexibility in when you can meet and those type of things. I agree with Greg. I thought you guys are going to work all this stuff out in the committee and then come back and say, here's what we came up with. You guys have any questions? No? Okay, then send it to the board or send it, and then we all approve it, and that's that. So if you have flexibility as an ad hoc committee, I would recommend that you go ahead and have the meeting and then bring it to the board. Hopefully everybody will read it and, have their comments ready. Also, I'd like to note that Grace is now here. So if we could address her issue under the Amazing Grace, because it does say on here, Amazing Grace discussion of outreach efforts. So if we could, Dolores, if it pleases you, if we could, after this discussion, go back and address that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Teresa. Paul?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that my understanding was the same as Greg's and Teresa's on this matter. So
Mhm.
I don't see any necessity really to make any decision here. Just allow the ad hoc committee do their review and come back to us with their recommendations.
Okay,
And
so,
hopefully they can do that by
so
March
in other
3rd.
words, and I'm good with that. In other words, what is provided to the secretary for posting on March 3rd would be a finessed language based on this. But if the committee, the ad hoc committee has other things, I feel we're going to be tortured and have to do the same stupid public comment part at that point. I don't know. I'm going to check with Don because
can we just meet
I don't know
next week?
who wrote these bylaws, that clause, but it just is torturous. Okay, that's enough. So, Greg, when would you be? Is it okay to have meetings on say a late Sunday afternoon rather than weeknights?
Sure.
Okay, so you and I, we'll just talk offline, and I'll make sure I know who. There's one more person on the ad hoc committee. I'm just not thinking who it is. Okay.
Thank you, Laura. What was that you mentioned, Teresa? I'm sorry.
That Grace Yu is now here, and I would like for her to be able to discuss the funding requests that the emergency preparedness has in regards to Amazing Grace and the outreach efforts we're going to try to do during that event. So I know we've moved past it on the agenda, but they are here now, and I would like to give them an opportunity, if it is possible, to talk about the funding that they would like to have for that event.
Do they have their paperwork?
No.
Grace, are you there?
I am. Hi, Dolores.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
Executive
I
Committee.
know they don't
Thank
have
you.
the paperwork, but I promise you I can start filling it out right now.
So we held our second Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness Committee meeting yesterday on Valentine's Day. You had some really dedicated community members joining. And during that call, which was already on the agenda, our request about some funding for outreach efforts at the Amazing Grace Conservatory activities that are scheduled to occur on April 9th. And the funding request was for us to be able to, so Greg, this is for you. We are going to do everything we can to get free items from LAFD and like the American Red Cross and PG&E about emergency preparedness checklists and booklets, some wonderful materials that are out there. We're going to do our very best to get all of these for free. But just in case we don't, and for the ability to have the UNNC logo out there for everybody to see, we are requesting funding up to $500. And again, it is only up to, and we're going to do everything we can not to spend that money, or as very little, maybe for like Avery labels kind of thing. So that is our request.
Okay, is the request, have you communicated with with Lizzie, the outreach court chairperson? Because we don't want our committees doing double duty. So are the things that you want to get,
It will be all about, thank you, Dolores, and we will make sure that we do not duplicate efforts. What we are requesting is funding for the emergency preparedness checklists versus anything else as far as outreach is concerned.
Okay,
I'm filling out the paperwork right now. Sorry.
I really appreciate your consideration and hope you'll say yes. And Greg, we will do everything we can to keep those
No,
dollars.
I, never mind. I'm not going to apologize for it. Okay, I have, Madam Vice President, I have questions.
so do I. Greg and then Teresa.
Okay, so do you, Grace, do you have a sample of this emergency preparedness checklist? Because it is something, it's something that we need to reproduce, it's something we need to create.
If you like, I can pull it up right now.
Yeah.
Would you like to
Because,
see it, Greg? I mean, I
well,
attend this
no,
meeting
no,
too.
I mean, no, well, it's just a general question because there's money available in outreach for printing and things like that. So if it's just a printing request, we have money set aside for that. So I'm
Yeah,
just,
Greg, we may not have enough money right this sec. That's the only issue.
What?
Here, let me, do you need to see that I did fill it out for Grace?
Yeah.
Okay, just tell me. See, there it says, Grace,
I can see it.
oh, I forgot to put the date. Sorry. All right, and we don't,
Can you back it up to that list of stuff
yeah,
up at the,
this designs, this list.
yes. What? Oh, it says typical. That's not what you're requesting.
Right. Putting TBA here. And Teresa is correct. We really should have had this morning,
but this is something that we're designing.
right?
It's not something that already exists.
Right.
So
Yes, Teresa, since you have it, can you share that when this is being shared?
The TBA is that we might do they might do a sticker that says UNNC wants you to be prepared for emergencies and our logo and stick it on a fire department handout or something like that.
That's good. That's cool.
Okay.
Hey, but the form doesn't say what it's for. It says for copying and printing, but what?
Would you guys like for me to try to pull that document up?
Yes,
There's
please.
a document. Okay, let me, give me a second here.
Okay, can you take that down, Laura?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, yes, but you see, but I'm happy to continue to work on this with Grace, is all I'm trying to say.
That's fine.
Okay, Teresa.
I'm trying to find it, so just give me one moment here.
And Grace, you had that, I don't know if you have it with you now, that lovely LAFD brochure that you tried to show us, but it was really hard for us to see.
right.
Zoom.
I wish I could, but I took it to the office and I'm home right now. So I don't have the lovely, colorful LAFD booklet.
Okay,
Oh.
so can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, this is a supply checklist that Dennis or Grace obtained, and it has it's great because it has graphics, but it's
Yes.
also, it lists some items in there that homeowners, people should have in case of an emergency, and in particular in case of an earthquake. So they wanted to print some of these off and have them available as a handout or possibly in Lizzie's bags at the Amazing Grace event.
Yes, got it.
So we're hoping to get these for free, like the American Heart Association, the American Red Cross. There's all these wonderful, colorful handouts, well done, items. However, we're not sure that we'll be able to get the in hand. And we may need to create a list, but it's not like we're creating it from scratch. We will go through and get all of the approvals. We just didn't want to be without the funds to get what we needed for Amazing Grace because of the dates, right? We can't come back in March. It would be too late for April. So that kind of situation.
Okay, you still have your hand up, Teresa. Okay, you were getting ready to say something, Greg?
Yeah, there's funds in the advertising outreach arena. We just did a budget transfer also. I know most of that was for communication, $6,000, but there's funds available. This is more like and this is still in the area of outreach also. So the funds are available, just to let your team know. Great.
Sure. Greg, how much funding do you think there is? Because I know of the 6,000, probably like more than 5,000 is earmarked for things already within the communications, right?
Yes, but there's about 900, 800 some dollars available still on that line. And then we still have some carryover money available. So you're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, when did the committee meet?
Last night.
Last night, it meets the second Monday every month.
Oh,
It's the second meeting.
okay. It's just that my concern was I sent out a week ago a notice to all the board members. If you had funding requests to get them in for, to go on the agenda. That's why I asked, when did you meet? So last night wouldn't have been enough. The agenda's already out. All right. So where do we go from here? What's your pleasure?
Well, technically, we could use item 4A, that last thing, potential additional funding, if you wanted to proceed that way. And another option is not to act on it here, but permit them to just take it straight to the board without a recommendation. It's really, again, as Teresa also said, Laura and Teresa agreed, we're not coming to this meeting to advocate this meeting. So I want to leave it up to the other three who didn't.
Well,
I don't understand. I don't
well,
understand you saying you're not advocating.
I
when
know
you are
we are,
advocating.
but it's their first time. This
Right.
this is the first, this committee was just activated. So we got to give them some time to know what they're supposed to do. That's why I sent her an
Right.
email and I said, hey, if you want this money, you have to come. And then
Right.
she is here. So we,
Right.
we got to
I
give.
was on another Zoom, but I quickly got off because I knew it was important that one of us shows up, and I saw it before Dennis today, so I'm on.
Okay, so item A, it does says discussion of outreach efforts and potential additional funding. So I guess they're covered by that. So I guess I would entertain a motion for the funding for this.
Yes. I make a motion that we approve the funding for, what's the name of the committee?
Public safety and
Public safety.
emergency preparedness
Yeah,
committee.
what Grace just said.
Okay,
Up to $500.
up to $500. Is there a second?
I second.
All in discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. Everybody, aye. Those opposed, no? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Good night, executive committee.
Good night.
Great, Grace, did you want to wait for the next item to hear about what happened at the Nuri Martinez meeting?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Thank
just
you.
hang on.
We're done with item B?
Yeah.
Okay. Laura, you were talking on that. We're done with that
Yes.
on the bylaws? All right, moving
Yep.
on to item C, update regarding Council President Nuri Martinez's efforts to provide an interim voting member to represent CD 10. Laura, you want to start?
Oh, why don't you start? Because I am typing up that motion for the chat.
We had, Laura and I attended a meeting this evening. It was not it was not a neighborhood council meeting, more of a community meeting. A group of us met with Council President Nuri Martinez this evening, and our host asked some very direct questions, posed some direct questions to her, and she was very open in her response. She didn't take offense or anything like that. And basically, there was, wait a minute, wrong notes. That's another meeting. I'm sorry. Okay. There was questions about a path to reinstating Margaret Lee Thomas, and she indicated that there was really no path to do that. The only path that he has is to get cleared of the charges against him, the indictment and all that. He needs to be exonerated, and then he can come back and he can come back and claim his duly elected seat. They talked about, there was questions with regards to him being automatically suspended, and she read us the section of the charter that gave them the authority to do that. Is when someone has been charged or indicted, that city council had authority to do that. And they did that with Weezer, they did that with Englander, and now currently with MRT. There was questions with regards to CD10 stakeholders, constituents not having representation during the redistricting process. And she had numerous phone calls, emails, letters with regards to that. And she had given a commitment to Carly, the chief of staff, that she would wrap her arms around the district and protect it. And she said that there was, in fact, some council people that were trying to pinch off of CD10, but she basically protected as best as she could and kept it whole, especially the part where Koreatown wanted to be in one district instead of split up 2 or 3 ways. And she was very supportive of that. She had decided to appoint Carly, and she was going to stay there until the end of December. MRT's court case was supposed to go forward in December, but then it got moved out to August. And that's when she met with Carly again and indicated to her that based on the community's response, she needed to appoint. She had been speaking with several groups within the community. She didn't want to say what groups that she had spoken with or what constituents she had spoken with, because she said that it was a matter of respecting their privacy. If they wanted to come forward and say that they met with her, then she would be willing to discuss that, but she was unwilling to say who she had met with. Then she reached out to the Sentinel newspaper, and then from that article, she had loads of emails, letters, phone calls, and there from all different aspects of CD10. concerned about her appointment of someone to represent us and wanted to make sure that it was someone that the community wanted. And she said that she heard from the African American community, from the Korean community, from the Bangladesh community, from the Latino community, and everybody had thrown out a name. But then it seemed to be a cohesiveness of the people that had been contacting her. Those previous names kind of went by the wayside, and all of those communities basically said that they wanted Herb Wesson to come back because he knew the district. He would come back and he could hit the ground. He could hit the ground running, and there would be no advantage to him because he had already termed out of office. So, and somebody asked a question: how come we couldn't have somebody that could then run for office after that was ended? And first of all, it's unethical. Secondly, it's illegal. But so it had to be somebody that didn't have an interest in running for office afterwards. So she said, then the question was asked about MRT's salary and benefits. And she said that the council had nothing to do with that. That was Ron Gelperin, the controller, that he decided that once MRT, Martin Rilke Thomas, was indicted, that he took away his salary and his benefits. Although a lot of people disagreed with that decision, the city council had no authority to overrule the controller on that decision. So they didn't have any, according to her, they didn't have anything to do with that. Because she had gotten so many phone calls and letters and emails, and the consensus was that the appointment should be Herb Wesson. She said that she first had to contact Herb to see if he was willing to do that. She also had to, and if he was, then she had to contact city attorney to find out if there was any problems with that, given the fact that he had termed out and then coming back to an appointment to fulfill the rest of MRT's term in office. And if the city attorney had no issues with that, then she would go ahead and put a motion forth to appoint Herb as the voting member of the city council. And then, of course, it would have to go to a vote to the full city council. Then the question was asked about MRT's reinstatement. She said that if and when they could not deem the position vacant, that if he was exonerated from all of the charges, he had every right to come back and claim his seat as city council person for CD10 because he was duly elected and voted in and duly elected by the constituents of CD10. So she says that if he's exonerated from everything, then Herb would be removed and MRT would come in and take his seat on the city council. There was a question about his back pay. If he is exonerated, would he get his money back that the controller took away from him? And she was saying that he should get his benefits and his money back, but since the council had no say so in that, all they could do is recommend to the controller that he be reimbursed what was taken away from him. Let me see, could be appointed in place. Oh, she said that he could be, the question was, if once she put the motion forward to the council and the council voted on, how long would it take for Herb to be seated? And she said probably within a week after the council voted. And then there was, a question again came, if being, I think that's it. Okay, you have anything else?
Yeah,
Did I cover-
there was other discussion on what happens to the staff. And
Oh,
she,
yeah.
right, so she had said
Go
that,
ahead.
that essentially she was trying to wrap her arms around the staff and protect the staff, but we should also, there was a lot of discussion about how great the staff has been and how emotional they have been as well. But she also did point out that if her or someone else is appointed, that they might have other staff people in mind. I mean, I'm really sort of, she didn't say it quite like that, but there'd be no way of not allowing even an interim appointed council member not to have his or her staff choices. And
Any questions? Nope. Okay. So that's about it on that item. The item D, moving forward, item D, fiscal 22-23 budget planning. Paul?
Yeah, so I think this one's pretty, well, for me, it's very clear in terms of the need for having some kind of, I mean, maybe we don't need a subcommittee, but we need some kind of training at a minimum, because I'm new to the board. I believe there's maybe some others who are new to the board since we've last had any kind of budgeting process. And I absolutely have no idea how it works, how it's supposed to work. And so I personally would benefit from, having some kind of a, training, or, I mean, I don't even know who's supposed to be on, like how the process is supposed to work. So maybe we don't even, I mean, again, maybe we don't need a subcommittee, maybe we do, but somebody who's been through this before could maybe speak to that point as to whether it's really just training that I would need or we would need, or whether it's actually a subcommittee to kind of, I mean, the other purpose of a subcommittee would be to try to get behind us when we go to the executive committee and the general governing board, like all the issues of what is our focus, what is our strategy, where do we want to go in the next year, at least to come up with some common themes, and then start funneling and directing maybe some of our dollars into those various categories. Like, anyway, that's sort of my opening statement, and I'm all ears as to anyone's thoughts on the matter.
Well, I thought that, not thought, when Denise Jackson was the president, we had retreat, a board retreat, and she brought in a person to facilitate the meeting, and budget planning was a part of that process. I don't think that we could have an ad hoc committee, but I think that all board members need to understand how to plan a budget. And so maybe we could have a special meeting. I don't know if there's any training tutorials on Empower LA's website. They have tons of training there, but I don't know if budget planning is one of them. That might be something that you might want to check out for your own personal edification, but there's a number of things that we could do with regards to that. Laura?
yeah, so obviously I've never personally participated in executive committees as an entity putting together a budget, because I've been blessed with a Greg who just did it. But I do think as we have so many new board members and so many involved and engaged board members, I think we talked about this last month or the month before about having a special standalone meeting to do budget session. And I think at this point, we can't appoint a committee, but we can call a special meeting. And it could be a special meeting of executive standalone focus, so that we don't have to worry about getting 13 members of the governing board either.
Any other comments? Greg?
I hear a few issues. One is budget development and the budget development, questions about the budget development process. I hear questions about the training, which is still related to budget development. And perhaps even execution of the budget. What I have been doing is trying to survey people, because as you all know, I hate additional meetings, but survey people and ask them what they would like to do. And, people kind of respond, but mostly don't respond to that. So yeah, I am doing the budget development phase. I will ask those questions again, what will be our focus? But I do see the benefit in having a presentation of this is the budget process, this is the budget development process. And then also stressing the importance of trying to have a focus for the year. So that we can get away from just giving money to whoever shows up at the door, but we have a theme that we're working on. Like we have a heart or focus that we want, something that we want to accomplish and we want to be known for in the upcoming year. So I support that. So, and by the next, so this is what I will do for the next general meeting. I will put out a calendar, put out a calendar of the dates for budget development, and then make proposals or ask questions about who wants to attend any training or a meeting. Excuse me.
You're getting fuzzy, Greg.
Yeah, because my someone's printing something. Then I can ask who wants to attend a budget meeting, a budget development meeting, and address those questions that Paul has to that. So I'll do that. So let me put that on my list. Budget calendar. How's that sound?
Paul, then Teresa, then Laura.
So I'll be quick. So just real quickly, what are the deadlines or the dates that we need to be thinking about related to the budget process?
Off the top, I'm gonna just be very general now, like it's in April timeframe. But by the next meeting, I'll have exact dates for
Right.
you.
I'll just jump in with a real quick answer. Our final adoption date is, well, our meeting that's the final adoption date would be Thursday, June 2nd. But if we can't make it by then, we can have a special meeting anytime in June to adopt the final budget. But if we don't adopt the budget in June, we have only $300 on July 1. They
Yeah,
freeze
we
our
don't want to do that. We don't want to do that.
No, we don't.
Yes.
Teresa?
Thank you, Dolores. I think this is a great idea. As I mentioned before, sometimes when Greg is putting all that stuff up, and I know it's a little more difficult for me because I'm also trying to, take some notes and everything, but to have a special session where I can ask some questions and he can go into a little more detail, and we can also, and I love the idea, as I mentioned before, when Greg talked about having a funding focus for the year. I think that's a great idea. I am concerned that if we come up with the funding focus and we have it ready for June or whenever, and then a new board comes in, they may be like, well, we don't want to focus on trees or focus on food giveaways or something like that. So I don't know if we can make decisions that the new board will have to follow through on, but I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. What?
Hold on, Laura.
Yeah. Well, the good news is we don't have a whole new board. We have 2-year terms. So, but yes, that's one of the issues when Dunn says nobody can be seated after elections till 100% of people are seated on July 1 of any given every other year, and they have to live with the budget the prior board did, even though the prior board may have just been unelected, ran and lost. What I'd like to suggest, and this works with your March 3rd governing board meeting, Greg, where you're saying who wants to participate, but we still have to call a special meeting. If you look at the March calendar, because March has 31 days, the last week of March, Tuesday, the 29th, Wednesday, the 30th, and Thursday, the 31st are the fifth Tuesday, fifth Wednesday, fifth Thursday of that month. So no one will have a standing meeting. They might have a date, they might have an event, but they don't have a standing monthly meeting. And Teresa, I think, unfortunately, is that when you might not be here? But that would be any of those 3 days if we want to decide, not necessarily tonight, but by March 3rd, we could set up that meeting for that date. So, there'll be no HPOZ meetings or UNNC committee meetings or anything like that on any of those 3 days. And
Great.
that is all I was going to say.
Great,
My
thank you.
comment is only related to the budget development and the budget approval. Yeah, we could develop the theme, if you want to call it that, or the focus. But yes, it is up to the next year's board to actually execute it. But at least we give them something to start with, because it just seems so much, it seems like it takes us a while to get things done anyway. So if we have a focus that we can say, we're focusing on outreach, or we're focusing on the elderly, or we're focusing on trees, or we're focusing on gardening, or whatever. So I think that would really take us quite far. And that way, when a request comes, we can say, this is consistent with what we said we wanted to do, or what we proposed to do.
Any other comments on that issue?
Sounds like we have a plan to handle this at the next meeting. So
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Item E, closing of Pio Pico School, Laura.
Yeah, well, it's just, I don't know what we are even able to do with this. So this is my understanding, not just from the person who spoke, but essentially, and if we go back in time a little bit, Pio Pico, which is located at Arlington and Pico, was to be partnered with what is now called the Carson Gore Elementary, which is Washington and Third. So when they were tearing down things and building that school, the whole idea was that those two campuses were to be combined as a span, so kindergarten to 12th grade. And they needed all of those seats. So obviously attendance has dropped. And some time ago, they split off the Pio Pico school from the Carson Gore, and have added to it the whole bunch of, well, special ed, but integrated special ed, I think is what they call it. So the proposal from LAUSD right now seems to be to split the regular students between Johnny Cochran and Berendo middle schools. And they have no plan for the special ed, and then to give the campus to Gala, which is, I'm not sure, honestly, I don't know if it's a charter or a magnet, but it's a girls only, female only school. The advocates are saying, why are you doing that? For two reasons. One, that Gala is not that large, and there's plenty of room on the campus for all of the existing students, because there's not that many students, plus Gala, and they still wouldn't fill all the rooms and seats on the campus. And then more importantly, I think from our perspective, might be it's a much higher performing school in terms of academic performance than either Cochran or Berendo. So it feels really kind of ugly to send these kids to Cochran, which used to be, it was named Mount Vernon, and pejoratively called No Learnin' Vernon. And then they changed the name to Johnny Cochran, and I don't even know what it is, but there's another rhyming thing that says the same thing about Cochran. I mean, Cochran's had decades of problems where the scores are extremely low. Berendo's a little bit better, but it's still low scores. So the problem is I don't know if a neighborhood council can even write a letter to LAUSD. And the other problem is, do we need the question would be, do we need the authorization of the governing board to do so? And so I just wanted to, bring it. We couldn't discuss it at the public comments level the other day. And I see Greg has his hand up. And I know he's knee deep in school and learning.
You done, Laura?
Yeah, I think Greg probably has more insight than I do.
Greg?
Okay, of course, when someone is about to have their school closed, there's a lot of pain in that, a lot of tears and hurt. As the board, that's beyond, in my opinion, that's beyond our capability of telling LAUSD what needs to be done, because we would really need to understand all the things that they've gone through and the enrollment and the performance of the school. And we shouldn't take it on as an emotional thing because a teacher or a parent or a group of parents are hurt about the closing of their school. Everybody loves their school. Well, not everybody, but people love their school, and of course they don't want it to be closed. But if we were to do anything, we should perhaps use this as an opportunity to learn, or maybe even ask someone from the district to come and speak about the schools that are in our areas, that are in our footprint, and to get an overview of the plans. But I do not recommend that we write a letter either for or against the closing of the school, because there's too much that we don't know about the details of why and how that decision was made.
And I will say that one of our former board members' daughter attends that school. One of my tenant's daughter attends not that school, attends Gala. Meaning, in other words, it would be I think there's probably a lot of our neighbors whose children are at whether it's a charter or a magnet, but are at Gala, so they'd be closer to home. So, and I might also add my even deeper background. When I moved here, that was the campus for LACES, Los Angeles. Oh God, I can't even remember what the C stands for, but LACES is a really, really excellent school. And it was terrible when they moved the whole campus over to Fairfax and Sawyer. And so we lost an educational asset back in the past. But I kind of agree with Greg. I just wonder, or are we even able to write a letter asking a question? No, asking, hey, what's going on? I don't know the answer because it's not a LA City.
Teresa, and then
Thank you, Dolores. I agree with Greg, but I do want to say that if a parent came to us and wanted to advocate for keeping the school open, then maybe we would offer a letter of support. But to have the administration, school administration come and ask us, yes, everybody wants their school to remain open and they want this and want that. But if parents came, then I think we could do it. But I'm going to stay with Greg on this.
Paul? Thank you, Teresa.
Yeah, I think the point I was going to make was essentially what Teresa just said. If we had a stakeholder within our boundary, I know it doesn't necessarily have to be within our boundaries, but it's certainly the request is stronger if it's coming from someone within our boundaries to show some support. That makes sense. I guess the two bigger questions for me are, one, to Laura's point, can we even write a letter? But the second thing is, does our letter even carry any weight? So why go through the effort of writing a letter if, LA Unified is going to be like, yeah, so what, and not even address, given the attention to our attempt to have some form of address for the school.
So the action on item E, the consensus is to take no action.
Correct.
They're good? Okay. Moving, what?
I would say if we're really interested in this, let's just use this as a catalyst to say, let's consider inviting LAUSD to speak to us about the schools in our footprint. Because I would really, if we can make contact with schools, that's really a great point of meeting our constituents, if we can have relationships with the schools. So that's it.
So,
No action, but well, the only action I would recommend is that maybe we could ask someone from LAUSD to come speak to us sometime in the next 6 months or so about schools in our footprint
well, if
for
the
future
school-
discussion.
Okay, thank you. Lizzie?
No, she's doing a thumbs up.
Thumbs
I
up,
think that
okay.
was just, yes, agreeing with what Greg just said. Thank you.
Oh, all right, thank you. Okay, next is, thank you, Greg. Next is item F, revisit type of and access to Zoom account. I put this on the agenda because of a comment that was made at our last board meeting that this Zoom account was Laura's personal account. And it raised questions in my mind. Well, who has access to this account? Is it only Laura? The next thing would be, what happens if, God forbid, something happened to Laura and she's not available? So I wanted to I wanted to revisit this. I understand that there was some discussion at a board meeting with regards to this before I came on board. And I understand that there was a communications has access to the Zoom account, but I'm thinking that executive board members, executive committee members should have access to this Zoom account in the event that Laura is, although she's a workaholic, she might want to go on vacation one time. And so who would run the meeting? How would we run our meeting if we didn't have access to the account? So my thought process was that executive, although I don't want to do it, I think that executive committee members should have at least have access to the account to run the meeting in the event that Laura is not available. Comments? Oh,
Well,
Greg?
let me just add, Dolores and I talked about it, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I'm out. My understanding is that we should have a I don't know, a jointly owned or city account. And I would think that not only the executive board, executive committee, but any of the committee chairs should be able to have access to the Zoom account so that they could host their own meetings. So it should, to me, the Zoom account should be ran by our techies, which is our communication committee, and that they should give access to the committee chairs. And then as many people from the executive board that want to have access to it, I guess we could have access to it, but the committee chair should have it. Anyone that's going to host a meeting should have access to it, but controlled by the communication committee.
Okay, I need to make some points of order, if you don't mind, Dolores. The city account is not available, cannot have multiple people with access. We've asked. Teresa's saying I'm wrong, but I haven't.
Teresa, can Teresa, hold on, let her finish, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
The city account, I have been informed strongly, is not accessible to multiple people. So that's, Teresa's saying I'm wrong, but I've been told this both in our 7-hour training over multiple nights, and what much more recently. In terms of letting 9 or 10 or 12 people have access to a single Zoom account, that the issue is that the settings are the settings, and whether it's an account I have paid for or an account we have paid for, the risk of each one of our meetings having different settings, it's all about security. I'm not sure that I agree that any committee chair who may or may not be a board member, may or may not have taken ethics training or any other of the mandatory trainings, should be able to just on his or her own set up a meeting and conduct it. What I do tend to do, or have done all along, is make the individual a co-host. Also, in order to have access to meetings, usually to run a meeting, you have to have your own account. I don't know how it works if we have one shared account. In other words, everybody logging in, and this would be the private account, not that we pay for. If everyone logs in from a single username and a single password, that might be okay. But then the next question would be, if a second person logs in while the first person is running a meeting, I don't even know what would happen. So it just doesn't seem technically that it makes sense to do what Greg just said, especially since, just so we're all clear, I think this is only another couple of months. And then after that, I believe they're going to introduce a hybrid model, which will be completely different. And we will have to use the city's hybrid anyway. There's no way anybody sitting at their home desk is going to be able to do that, whatever the requirements are. So it's one thing for me to say, sure, everyone should have access. There's not much in it. There's nothing in the Zoom account other than the next couple of meetings. They get it set up shortly. So anyway, in terms of the city account, in order for me to use the city account, it's sort of beyond my ability on a bandwidth basis to be running it as easily as we run these meetings. And I can explain that in greater detail if anyone wants to know. But it just is going to make it much, much harder for me to do what I do. And I'm not sure if it's, again, just a few months that we should go through that. So again, I don't mind. Gabby has my access, Raheem has my access. I think the web team does, but I have no problem with the officers also having the username and password.
Thank you, Laura. Teresa?
Okay, first of all, and you know this, Laura, Gibson said that the board can regulate, these are his words, and I can show you guys the email, the board can regulate the use of the UNNC Zoom account. I have said and stated this to you vociferously, we should not be using your personal account on our public UNNC meetings. I know it may be more convenient for you, but it is inappropriate. Also, the comment you just made about that there may be duplicate meetings happening. There aren't duplicate meetings happening now. You handle one meeting at a time, and that would be the same case. And I believe there's no way that there would be a violation of security if someone does not have their ethics training, then they can't host their meeting. There may be training that's required before they could, as a chairperson, where they could host their meeting. And I agree that it's just a few months before we, make this change, and we're going to try to start streaming live. But it's still, all of these meetings require you to be present, which means that there's no autonomy for these committees to do their work. That you have to be there, and yes, it's your prerogative as president to comment and to participate in the meetings, but there needs to be autonomy that someone can have their meeting, chair their meeting, run it the way they want, and start it and end it if it ends sooner or ends later, and host their meetings properly. So I disagree that this would be an inconvenience for, and maybe an inconvenience for you, but it certainly should be what the procedure and the process the board needs to follow moving forward.
Right.
Thank you, Teresa. Hold on, Laura. Teresa, Paul, you had your hand up?
I put it back down.
Okay, so then Tori and then Gabby.
I have a question. Would that pertain to me? Because I specifically asked, do I need to do ethics? And the other one, again, since I wasn't on the board, but I am still chairing meeting, the homeless committee.
We don't have an answer for that just yet. We're just, it was just brought forward this evening. Gabby and
But
then Teresa.
Well, let me tell you, I'm willing to get it done if I need to get it done. So just let me know.
Anybody that will have to have that training. Yes, thank you. Gabby and then Teresa.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to echo Teresa's comments. You know, it took us a little bit over a year with Raheem to get access to the Zoom to set up, you know, any settings that we might want to, you know, change for live streaming. It took almost a year and a half to get the access to the Zoom. So I do also, and, you know, as my background as a clerk, I also agree that it is, you know, necessary to maintain a balance and to ensure that one person is not just in charge of, you know, everything. I've expressed my concerns previously to Laura when I was on the governing board. So I agree. I think that the executive committee should move forward with sort of, I guess, providing some sort of guidelines for access to Zoom, because there aren't any right now. We will continue to, I think that there will be a hybrid setting very soon. And so we will need some guidelines, some parameters for the use of Zoom for all of our committees. And so I think moving forward with some sort of parameters will be helpful to all of us that chair committees and that might want access to the Zoom or need it. So I think that would be a good step forward.
Okay, thank you, Gabby. Teresa and then Laura.
I also want to say, kind of in connection with what Tori was saying, if someone chooses not to want to use the Zoom, they could ask, you know, communications or someone else or Laura to please continue to set up their Zoom and host their Zoom meetings for them. There may be committee members who do not want the responsibility of that. So there has to be an option for them to not want to have to deal with that technology.
Laura?
Yeah, so for,
Teresa.
again, clarifying, the only thing I said was inconvenient, or more than inconvenient, it's gonna be very difficult, is utilizing the city's Gmail-based webinar / Zoom license. It has to be through Gmail, just so you know. I mean, it's mandatory. And it's embedded in the UNNC president's email. So Gibson said there's no way that I can share that. I don't know what Gibson said to Teresa, because I think we've also experienced that Gibson sadly tells different people different things. But he literally said, I can't do it. But that's not to say we can't purchase a UNNC license. I mean, it doesn't have to be mine. It really doesn't.
It is unnecessary for us to purchase a license that we already have access to. It's a free license. I mean, we shouldn't have to pay for that.
But you're telling.
Wait. Let her finish, Laura, please. Teresa?
And we can get a UNNC at Gmail or some other, if it has to go through Gmail, there's no reason why communications can't come up with that Gmail email.
Okay, I get that. It's just that I mean, again, and Gabby, it wasn't a year and a half, as you know, because this conversation started in April in conjunction with how to do the elections, the big elections candidates forum. So we actually voted, because we have had iterations of board members to approve this and the purchase of a second license, which would be UNNC's first purchase back in May and June of 2020. And this was with Dunn, we did the practice runs with Dunn. They approved it. They said that Jeff Camp should be the moderator because he works for the city. They've dropped that requirement. We did another practice run with Dorit, so it was different officers at the time. So there was nothing secret about this. This was approved. Nobody thought this was going to go on for as we were entering the third year, obviously. But we voted to purchase a second license and have a second host, and that was to be a side. Anyways, be a board member. Greg was there. Nobody actually wanted to be that second host, just to be clear. So we never bought the license, but the board voted to go ahead and purchase and stay in this format. The Zoom, the UNNC Zoom account, which is not really a UNNC Zoom account, Gibson says he's the administrator of it. He told me quite specifically, I cannot share it. And beyond that, we probably don't want to be sharing the UNNC president Gmail account with the 9 or 10 or whatever people anyway. So setting up a separate Gmail takes us out of the city system. So I don't know what else to say about it. And do what you guys want, but I have to say that I, like the rest of you, am a volunteer. And when I say to you, this will be very difficult for me to utilize the Gmail, the Zoom account for the city, just because of the nature of my technology, I think you need to respect that as well, because I'm a volunteer. I'm already spending a huge amount of my time, and it is not, honestly, the only reason people now know it's my personal account is because it's been announced. It was never obvious that it was, quote, my personal account. I don't use it for personal stuff. I did it on behalf of UNNC. Anyway, Greg has his hand up, Teresa has her hand up, and I'm, I don't know, whatever you guys want to do.
I have a question. The city's Zoom account, is that like a webinar? Or is it like?
It is. It's kind of like what we sat through today. So part of the issue is if we use the webinar format, but I did figure out that I could use the Zoom meeting format in it. I was able to set up settings in that. But if you use the webinar format, part of the issue is that in order with a 23-member board, somebody has to promote an individual to panelists, all board members to panelists when they arrive. And again, that wouldn't be the president doing that, because the president would kind of be already moderating a meeting, but it's just another step. And it's the Zoom meeting format's smoother, let me just say that, but we agreed to use it because it allows our stakeholders to be fully participatory. We can use the meeting format in the city license. That is not really the issue. It will not permit, it's frozen, no chat, not even the way we use the chat. It's frozen as a setting we cannot use. And I didn't really explore it more thoroughly than that, because after I saw that and realizing the difficulties I have technologically with using it, it's like, I can't do this. And that's
Teresa,
personal. That's just personal.
Teresa, then Greg. Thank you, Laura.
I just put in the chat, if I can, the part of all of the email except for my name from Gibson saying that the board can regulate. Yes, so yes, we need to respect Laura's technology. She's out, it's not like she's, in the Silicon Valley and understands all that stuff. So we have to respect that. And we have to acknowledge that for the pandemic, she has been hosting these meetings, and that is important. I mean, that's given the board an opportunity to continue with the meetings. I'm just more concerned about her resistance to hold on to it. If everyone is hosting their own Zoom meetings, and they're using the UNNC account or the Dunn account, then I'm not quite sure how that affects your technology, except for when you host meetings. And the only meeting that you host, I guess, would be the governing board meeting, because all the other meetings, unless, Tori or Lizzie wants you to host their meetings, would be hosted by a chairperson. And I, at this point, I don't even know if we should try to force the issue, because if we know from communications that it's going to be in 2 months, we're going to start streaming live, then, and we can just alleviate having to work through Laura to do that, then maybe it's not worth it. I don't know.
Thank you, Teresa. Next is Greg.
My thoughts are that if the city says that we could use the city account, then we said that we should have guidelines for that. The communication committee should lead that effort for setting up the guidelines for that. And then, yes, I do believe that we should work towards all of the committee chairs being able to host their own meetings. It may be that we issued one account, and it may be that we may need to create a shared login that we all log in under, but that's simple enough to do. Yeah, but I think the lead on technology things need to be with the communication committee if they are willing to do that. And to me, they have the technical expertise to say, this is how this works. And I just don't understand. Yeah, I mean, I have my own Zoom account also, but you know, a lot of people have their own Zoom account. So, but if the city's providing one, let's use it and let's empower our people. I don't like going with the mindset of we can't trust them. That really sets me off, because we have to trust our people. And yeah, they may make mistakes, but we have to trust our people to do it right. They're not going to mess something up on purpose.
Thank you, Greg. Paul?
Yeah, I guess I would just say that, you know, ideally, and what we should do and what's proper is everything should be on the city account. Like, we really shouldn't be, to every degree possible, not mixing personal, private with the city function, even though we are volunteers. But we've come this far. We have another solution, you know, at our doorstep in the next few months. And if the city or Dunn has not expressly said that, you know, the way, you know, that Laura using her personal account, you know, is not in violation of something, I just kind of feel like just to let it go and let's just hold our breath and wait until the new solution is implemented in the 2 months, or hopefully it's only 2 months from now.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, no, again, based on the conversation that Dolores and I had in putting this on the agenda with agreement, I did say, I mean, in other words, we're mixing up a couple of different things. The one concern is not if I want to choose to go on vacation, it's I drop dead at the end of a meeting.
I didn't want to
Right?
say that.
I know you didn't, but that's an issue, because if I dropped dead at the end of this meeting, there's still a meeting tomorrow night, and the next night that Rahim, I see the funny face in the thing, but Rahim has access, but should more people have access so they can start the damn meeting, you know, so that the rest of our stakeholders don't get, you know, miss the meeting. So that I know. So I agree that more than just 1 or 2 people should have the login capability to start. Obviously, I would be not happy to have 15, 20 people, you know, lots and lots of people have access to a personal account. That would make me very squeamish. My point about, not that we have 2 meetings going at once, but we couldn't, but I have tried to just be running a UNNC meeting and logging into another meeting and trying to start it, and it kills the first one. So I'm just not sure if even a person randomly logging into the Zoom account to set up their meeting for their agenda wouldn't have a problem with somebody who's currently running a meeting. I mean, when I say I don't know, I do not know. So I'm not sure that that's a way to go. I think it's okay to have multiple logins, but probably still a single person or a coordinated event effort would need to happen to create those Zoom meetings so that people are not logging in on top of each other, unless somebody knows something different. But this started out as a, what happens if you become incapacitated? How do we access the Zoom account? And that's the same question. Let me just say this about our Facebook, our Instagram, our YouTube. I mean, there's nobody who has every one of these logins. Well, maybe Raheem. And so I know that what Dunn does want neighborhood councils to do is share a lot of that information. So, not have it just one or two people. So that was where it started with Dolores and I agree. And I think the whole group of officers should just have the login. But again, I'm not.
What is this thing that you guys keep saying? I wasn't aware that there was going to be a change. You said a hybrid coming.
Yeah, Dunn has established a group of people as a combination of staff and NC people and tech people to design a new system of hybrid meetings where some board members are in person and others, and plus the public, would be still remote on Zoom. And if they do that, they're buying the technology and it's going to be completely different. And that,
Laura, I think to my understanding, they said there's a chance that it might be implemented, but
correct.
It's not for sure. We don't know if it's going to happen in 2 months. We thought this was going to be over.
Yes.
July 2020. So,
right. Well, but also from the Brown Act perspective, that AB 361, this ends, Zoom ends, and any other virtual format ends the minute LA County, LA City, and or the state eliminate the emergency. We're still in a declared emergency. Once that goes away, we're done.
That's also true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the surrounding cities all throughout Southern California, I just did the survey yesterday, are still meeting virtually. So city councils all throughout the Southern California region are still meeting virtually and are scared to go back to in person. I don't know what the chances are of the city of LA's neighborhood councils going back to in person.
Right. No, I understand. I agree with that. I mean, again, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, not least that, I only have 4 months left as president. So should UNNC have a Zoom account that lots of people actually can access and be co-hosts on, et cetera? Well, yes, we actually voted for it back in June of 2020 or thereabouts. Maybe November, but in 2020, we voted to do it, but no one wanted to take on that hosting thing, period. So it was like, what a great idea, but we didn't actually have a person who wanted to do it. So we never spent the money. So we go back and find the BAC, but you have to have a person that's a different person to do it. And we could buy 3 licenses. We can buy 5 licenses. Again, I'm getting different information than Teresa apparently is, where I'm being told I cannot share the Dunn license. So 2 different things. Can UNNC purchase its own license? Yes. Can I share the Dunn with everybody? I'm being told no.
Well, do you think that we should, since there's a possibility that a change may be coming pretty soon, would it be appropriate to table this item on the agenda for a couple of months just to see if there's a change? Because if there's a change going to be happening, then this becomes a moot issue, right?
Right.
But I still think that this needs to be.
Okay, Dolores, the sharing of the logins is not moot, and I will do it, and I can do it tomorrow. I can do it tonight, but that is not an issue. That's not, I think, Teresa's issue.
No, it's not. And no one wants, we're not talking about you sharing the login to your personal Zoom account. That is not what we're talking about.
Well, that's not what you're talking about. It's what Dolores and I were talking about.
Well, it seems as though it's morphed into something more, Laura.
Correct.
Because quite frankly, and then there's the fact that it's your personal Zoom account and we're using it for all of our meetings and you're not being compensated. It's coming out of your pocket. So that's
Okay. Yeah, but I volunteered to do, okay, so again, understanding the setting, when this first started, we had no ability, okay. In order to start us even meeting, I had to buy a Zoom license. Dunn did not provide us a Zoom account until very recently, just to be, clear. Even though they said they were gonna, they never did. So in order for us to start meeting, just to even vote on how we're gonna do Zoom, someone had to buy a damn license, and that was me. I purchased a professional license. It's not very much money. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it through the course of my presidency. It will expire, however, at the end of July when we have a new president anyway. So we'll need to have a real discussion no matter what, because you're going to have a new president. So at that point, I mean, now it's a whole other thing. So I've already paid for it. I mean, it's, there's no paying me back. There's no reimbursement. That's not the way city clerk would allow it anyway. So my annual decide, but I don't use it for other things, just to be clear. I purchased it for UNNC.
Thank you, Raheem, and then Teresa.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and just mention that I've been told the same exact thing that Teresa's been told from Gibson, that it's up to the board to kind of decide what can be done with that city provided Zoom account. So that's almost the exact same language that Teresa posted in the chat is what he told me as well. And then, yeah, the other thing, Laura, like this whole doomsday scenario that you're talking about, like where, you get beamed off to another planet or whatever. In that scenario where if you go away, like unless you have something in your will that Zoom's going to just continue to get paid indefinitely, then that account will eventually go away too. So like protecting us against that means, like, I think moving to the city provided Zoom account, like the end. I don't know why we're still talking about this. To Gabby's previous point, this is something that we've been asking you for a long time. I don't know if it's been a year and a half or a year, whatever you guys are saying, but we've been asking for the login to the city provided account. That's the account that I provided you that Yahoo email account for.
Yeah.
And so like we've been going back and forth on this for a long, long time. And so, I mean, Dolores, I hear you about possibly tabling this, but I mean, I've had conversations with Teresa about this, with Gabby about this, with Greg about this. Like, I don't understand why we'd continue to just kick the can down the road when we have a solution. We all agree that we're kind of like operating in this weird gray area where we're using Laura's personal account for this stuff that's official business. Like, why are we doing that when we have another viable way? And the other thing, Laura, like, the first reason that you gave why we couldn't use the city account was because it was this webinar format, and now we're hearing tonight like, oh, it's not this webinar format, we can do the other. So it's like it's really frustrating, like, to be honest, like just to be told something different every single time, and it's like to have been going around in circles on this for such a long time has been really frustrating for a lot of us.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
And then the last thing that I'll say, the accounts that you mentioned, the YouTube account, the Instagram account, the Facebook account, multiple people have access to those. Those accounts aren't housed under just one person's jurisdiction. Gabby and I both have logins to all those. Our photographer Josh also, Lizzie has the login to the Facebook, is an admin on the Facebook account. So we've been redundant in all these other places. And so the question just remains, why are we not redundant in this on the Zoom account? That's it.
Oh, thank you, Raheem. And just to comment on what you just said, I don't know about the other board members before I came on board, but this was just brought to my attention at our last board meeting, and I just became curious about it. And that's why I put it on the agenda, because I just felt that just Laura hosting all of the meetings and having access was, in the event that something happened with her, who would run the meetings? And I just felt that the executive committee, at the very least, should have access to the Zooms. But anyhow, Raheem?
No, I'm done, sir. I'll put my hand
My
down.
hand is up.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You using the brown one. I can't see it. Go ahead, Greg. and
Sorry.
Tori.
Yes, I am brown. I am brown. Um, I don't know if it's appropriate to make a motion, but for action, my action would be that we would move forward on this day. What's the date of the day?
The 15th.
15, on the 15th of February, that we would move forward with using the city account, that we would charge the communication committee with working out the details of who will have access to it, or how access would be shared with the committee members or the executive board, and that the communication committee come back to us at the next meeting with their proposal for using the city account. They work out the details. They're the experts for that. That's my proposal, and I don't know if I should put it as a motion, but it's just.
Greg, it's a little bit difficult unless they have a special meeting, because their meeting is this Thursday, so it's not on
That's
their
what-
agenda. And there'd be the identical calendar for March, where they would be meeting after executive. So I mean, if they can have a special meeting in addition to the one this
Do they
Thursday.
have do they have an agenda item that says old business?
This
because
is
if
not
they
old business for their agenda, Teresa. They
It is
haven't
old
discussed
business.
it.
Okay, and let me just go back one thing to what Dolores said. Dolores, months ago, I brought this up, and I don't know if it was at governing board meeting or if executive, but I brought up the fact that I wanted to talk about streaming and talk about how the Zoom account was being used. And you said to me, that's communications. Communications needs to come and talk to us. So I've been talking about this for a while. And this also falls into my frustration with the Zoom meetings on putting them on a hard drive. Laura did not want to relinquish those meetings. And remember, I wrote that letter. You and Dolores and Greg said, oh no, we don't have to send her that letter. Well, I gave her the letter. And then a week later, she put all those meetings on the hard drive. There's some frustration. I get it. She's the president. She takes ownership for wanting to lead the UNNC, and she feels that by controlling it, she can make sure that things happen properly. I appreciate that. But the fact is, committees need to be able to have some autonomy to run their committees the way they want. That the president doesn't have to sit there and comment on every single thing and lead their committees. And it's just, to me, wrong that she's using her personal account. We have an account, and I know that you don't use it for anything else besides UNNC business, but it's still wrong. So yes, this has been going on for a long time, and I feel that communications, I don't know all their agendas and all their stuff, but this could fall under their old business. And I agree with you, Greg, that communications needs to work at all these details and come back and say exactly how it's going to work, and possibly include the streaming if we're going to start streaming. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. I do remember that conversation. I must have forgot about it. I stand corrected, but was not my intent to kick it down the road.
So does my motion stand, or do I need to make a motion now?
Or was that just your thought proposal?
Well, if we need to do a motion to get it moving, then I'll make a motion. But-
Great. The only comment I made about your motion is just the time frame. If you want them to develop a policy and bring it back, if you want it brought back on March 15, it's not on their agenda this Thursday, and their next scheduled meeting would be March 17. And I would add, please, this policy should not be developed by weekly team meetings not compliant with the Brown Act. This needs to be a public meeting where they develop the policy that you're asking.
It's a operational.
Nonetheless, I mean, we all
It's an
have some
operational
issues.
thing.
We all
No,
have
no.
some issues.
Okay.
I'm talking, please.
Okay.
We all have some issues with how different people are operating, and we're at the end of Zoom and the end of COVID, and we're all frustrated. I get it. I mean, we're tired of Zoom meetings, we're tired of COVID, we're tired of everything. But if you're asking And I don't have a problem with it because we're going to have new officers in early July. It's really a good idea to have our own policy developed for how to handle the Zoom accounts. But it needs to be developed in a Brown Act compliant meeting, and their next meeting is after our next meeting, because it's the same exact calendar as this month. So, I mean, we're going on, but I'm just saying it must be a Brown Act compliant meeting, just as this one is, because there's been an awful lot of discussion behind the scenes or out of the blue at some committee meeting.
Laura, you're getting off the call. You're out of order. You're out of order. You're bringing up another subject. I want to, before I call on the next person's hand raised, I want to ask Raheem, as the chairperson of communications, what are your thoughts on this process?
Yeah, well, co-chair with Gabby, but yeah, I mean, this is, it's hard to even still be talking about this. This is something, again, we've been trying to figure out for a long time. I guess I agree with Laura that this should be discussed in our committee meeting, but I also think that like, this also isn't super complex, guys. Like coming up with how we should use a Zoom account as a board is like a pretty simple thing that I think Gabby and I could probably write something up and get back to executive like pretty quickly. So, I mean, if we need to have it be super official and have it come up and talk about it in a meeting, we'll do that. But you know, it's also not that complicated, I don't think.
Oh, okay, well, I know you can write up something. I'm talking about the process of moving from Laura's personal account to a city account, if that's what is the flavor of the board and what that process is. I don't want to just move, have the motion that we just move from Laura's personal account into the city without some kind of guidelines and what the process is.
Yeah, and step one is getting the login for that city account that we've been asking for forever now, so we can see what, like Laura knows much more about it than we do because we've never even been able to log into it, the whole like webinar versus Zoom meeting thing, and that like we know nothing about that because we haven't been given access to that account. So that's step one of everything.
And step two?
Step two would be that, okay, then Gabby and I'd be like, okay, this is what it is, so this is how we can use it. And we'd write up, steps 1 through whatever, share that back with the executive committee, and you guys can do with it as you see fit.
Okay, so then to focus on what we need to do as the action plan here is that you need to find out about this login. And then when you do, you and Gabby will write up something and bring it to the next executive committee or the full board?
I mean, honestly, it's whatever you guys want. We can come back to the executive committee, we can go to this full board. Yeah. I think Teresa is right, though, that we can bundle this with what we've been discovering for the streaming, because that was one of the reasons why we were also inquiring about this account all those months ago, however long ago it was, because that was one of the first reasons why we were asking about it. So we could certainly bundle this in with what we're going to be presenting to the board for the streaming, if Gabby agrees with that, because I know she's been taking the lead on that. But yeah.
And that would be at the next governing board meeting?
Yeah.
Or when?
I think so. I mean, Gabby, if you're there, it'd be cool to hear what you think.
Yeah, that's doable for us. I mean, it's up to you when you want to present it to the board, but we can be ready.
I need to say something here. Gabby, what you put on the agenda for Thursday was that there wasn't going to be a presentation or action on streaming. I mean, in other words, I'm being a pill. I know that, but
actually,
stick to
that's the reason why I'm here. I don't have any guidance from executive on the live stream, so at this point I am discussing. There's no presentation or action expected at the next meeting for live stream, but I did want some guidance on that, because we previously voted or discussed this at a board, governing board level to enable UNNC meetings to be streamed on YouTube or other media platforms. But I was hearing some hesitance at our last meeting about that, specifically from you, Teresa. So I just want some guidance on what needs to happen so that at our committee meeting, we can finalize details and then bring back whatever we need to bring back to the executive committee or to the governing board. I mean, we're at least at this point, I'm following guidance from what you guys want to make your meetings more accessible is pretty much what I want to know. Like, where do I go from here?
Thank you, Gabby. Teresa, then Tori, then Laura.
I think Tori had her hand up before me, so I'll acquiesce and let her go.
All right, Tori.
Thank you, Teresa. I was gonna say, touching on what Teresa touched on about the hard drive. Where have all these recordings been stored? Is it in Laura's personal cloud? Or is it able to be everything on that hard drive? I don't need answers now, but this is something for communications to know and obtain moving forward.
I can answer that, Tori. All of the Zoom meetings from 2020 have been uploaded to the UNNC YouTube page.
Okay.
And all of the meetings for 2021 are on a hard drive that I have. And I have committed to uploading them also to the UNNC YouTube page. It's just that it's better for me on Sunday when I'm not doing anything else to just take my time. It takes about 20 minutes, 30 minutes to do each meeting. If it's a 2-hour meeting or so, it takes about 20 minutes. So I have made the commitment to put all the 2021 meetings for all the committees on our YouTube page. And that brings me to my second part. If committees do start doing their own, and we're not streaming, and they start hosting their own meetings, how are they going to save that recording, and where does that recording land? So I'm a little concerned about that. So I would like to recommend that we move, that Laura immediately relinquishes the the UNNC Zoom account information to Raheem and Gabby, or to the communications team, and that we figure out, since we know we want to start streaming, let Laura continue to host until we get the streaming thing worked out, which I'm hoping that we can do. And I thank you very much, Gabby, for coming and asking for guidance from the executive, that we can start streaming these meetings, working out all that technology. That's what I would like to do. I'd like some more discussion on that, though.
Laura.
Yeah, so I don't know what the holdup is on the streaming, because they could be streaming right now from this account, just to be blunt. I've already said it. I don't know why not. We shouldn't be just.
They don't want to stream
Laura,
from your account.
Teresa,
Yeah.
please.
Go
Well,
ahead.
the don't wanna is the first time I've heard that. They have been able to in general terms, but I don't know the specifics. In terms of guidance, what the guidance I had received, not personally, but in done trainings, on terms of what to live stream to, is the only two choices are YouTube regular and any Facebook live stream where you don't have to have an account in order to see it. In other words, it has to live stream so that the viewer can just watch it without being a member of Facebook or an account holder with, I think the other one is YouTube Live. I mean, in other words, it has to be something accessible where you don't need an account as the viewer. And beyond that, there may be some other platforms, just as long as you can see it without an account. And so maybe Instagram you could see without an account, I don't know. And again, I mean, I feel a little bit, defensive, accused. Gibson had emailed Raheem and I to say he would run a tutorial for the two of us on how to use the Dun account. But in that email is when he said, but only Laura has can have the login. So in other words, we're all getting different messages. I'm being told, I know, don't shake your head. You know we're getting different messages, but it kind of at some point we're in a circle here. This is going to take a little bit of time to figure out not just the stuff we're talking about, but going back to Greg's idea that every committee member, well, what does that, I mean, every committee host. So we need to work this out. I'm
We're
agreeing, but I think you need to understand that I feel like when it's worked out, it's moot as to the name Laura or Laura account, because by the time we adopt whatever we're going to adopt, I think I won't be the president. And it won't be me that you're telling who to do what, it'll be somebody else. So let's make it generic. Laura cannot give Gabby and Raheem access to the city Zoom account, contrary to what Teresa and Raheem were saying. Gibson told me I can't. So
Okay, but
I
that
will
is-
try again. I'm going to reach to his bosses because we're getting different answers from him. I'm just going to reach out higher.
Okay, sorry, Dolores, may I speak now?
Yes.
Okay, Gibson has said that the board can regulate the use of the UNNC Zoom. We have, and he did not say executive committee, he said the board. So that means that we determine who uses and has access to that, not you, Laura. And I am stating right now that you and we can vote on it or what we need to do. You need to relinquish the UNNC Zoom information to Communications Committee. We are required, I don't know if we have to vote on it. That needs to be relinquished immediately so they can then start preparing.
You know, they told me not to do it, Teresa. I can't say it any.
When was that, Laura? Because I just got a communication
Both
from
of
him.
you
It's
are out
posted
of
in there.
order. Both of you are out of order. We're trying to resolve an item on the agenda here without this infighting, please. We're trying to conduct some business. Please
Yes,
conduct
Dolores.
yourselves accordingly.
Thank you, Dolores. I just can't keep saying over and over again, I was told I can't. It's not a personal login. Dunn made the login. Dunn created it. Gibson told me he's the owner. So I will just simply go over his head to the higher ups and ask them what is the allowable protocol. If he's wrong or again giving us mixed messages, I'll find out. I don't know any other way to say it. I was specifically told I can't do it. And so anybody sitting in this room demanding that I do it, it doesn't really change what I was told.
I don't I'm trying to get clear here. Teresa, can you unmute yourself, please? Where are you?
Right here.
What do you mean by Laura relinquishing everything to communications?
I'm not saying everything. The UNNC was issued a Zoom account for the UNNC to use to host Zoom meetings. That information is being held by Laura. She refuses to release the password or the information because she says Gibson told her that she cannot do that. I have a communication, which I just posted in there from Gibson, that says the board determines and regulates the use of the UNNC account, not the president. Now, Laura's saying that's what he said to her. I have a recent communication.
You're speaking of the city Zoom account? Is that what you're
Yes.
talking about? Okay.
Yes, that's the one that was issued to the UNNC by Dunn. Now, I don't know why, Laura, you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to relinquish it because I know what's best for our neighborhood council, and I see that this is causing acrimony, then you would do it. I don't know why you're holding on to it, but if you want to go and you want to check with Rachel Beltran or whatever her name is, if that makes you feel better, but I'm telling you what he said. And I just feel that you're being defiant. You have been defiant when it comes to this Zoom thing, and I don't know why. I swear to you, I do not know why, but I'm requesting, maybe others on this call are requesting also that you share that link, share that email and password with communications. I'm not demanding, I'm requesting.
Thank you, Teresa. Raheem? Raheem?
Hey, sorry. I think that like we need to understand like what Done is as an organization, and like it's cybersecurity 101. Of course, they're going to tell you not to share like a login and password with anybody, because that's again, that's cybersecurity 101. But what we're getting to is like the spirit of what Teresa is saying, and what I'm asking for, what Gabby's been asking for, is for you to share this login with. So I think, Laura, I think that if you do go to whomever at Done and ask like a broad question about whether you can share a login, I kind of know what they're going to say, just like from like a cybersecurity standpoint. But that's not what we're asking for. And like so like. I don't think you need to go to anybody at Done to request this. Again, like Teresa and I have heard the exact same thing from Gibson, and like so I feel like, again, this is like a super frustrating thing, just because we've been doing this for what feels like forever, and to kind of like continue in this loop, or to go back into this loop now where it feels very unnecessary.
Thank you, Raheem. Greg?
Mute myself. Okay, so, well, I'm glad that we have a definite no on the topic, so that there isn't a thought that it is going to happen. So if Laura is going to check with the powers that be if she can share it, then I just ask that the communication committee be included in that conversation about having access to the city's account, so that the communication committee can hear, and so they can have the same conversation. Yeah, that'll be step one. So we won't get any further if we can't get past that one step of them having access to manage it. And then I guess I can compare it to this. You know, as a high school principal, the principal is responsible for everything. The president is responsible for everything for us. But that doesn't mean that the president or the principal doesn't delegate things to people to handle it for him or her. And so I see this as that area. And for us to be efficient, we need to give the communication committee the tools to do their job and to move us forward. So it's nothing personal. It's just a technology management issue that it baffles me that we seem to be stuck here. I would like to go on to the next topic if it is all possible.
We have to complete this.
Okay.
So what I would like to see, if you don't mind, Greg, is that Laura go ahead and check with the higher ups on this issue, but I would like to have either Raheem or Gabby on that call with her, so we can have 2 ears to hear the same thing and bring it back to us. And then I would also like for Gabby and Raheem to develop guidelines so we can move to a city account, away from her personal account to a city account, and also to find out what that process is. And so in requesting that, I would also like to table this, or either move it forward to the governing board so we can continue the conversation instead of waiting a whole month. Either we table it for the next executive committee meeting, or we put it on the agenda for the governing board for Gabby and Laura and Raheem to bring us the results back of their research. How about that?
I said to the governing board.
Okay.
The next governing board.
Gabby and Raheem, are you agreeable to that?
Sure.
Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Laura?
what, the executive committee sets the agenda for governing board.
I'm asking if you're agreeable to that.
Well, I'm agreeable. I'm just, it's sort of like back to the whole accusatory thing. I'm fine with everything you said, but I will point out, it's not like Gibson gave Raheem the password, which he has. He made it up. Gibson created it.
Well, Laura, we're getting ready to resolve that because you're
I
going
know.
over.
No, that my point is, if I am wrong and Teresa and Raheem are right, why didn't he just give them the darn password?
I don't know, you have to ask.
I know, I'm just saying. So, but be that as it may, it's fine. I think, again, multiple things. I certainly don't mind taking to executive the results of whatever conversation hopefully Raheem and I can have with somebody higher up at Dunn to get a clarity answer, the end. I am not okay with rushing through without there being a public discussion, the whole policy of how to use Zoom. Also, I mean, to bring it that straight to the board, I think that really has to be developed by the communications committee, as you said, and probably brought, certainly not by March 3rd. I mean, there's no way they're going to have enough public meetings. Last but not least, there is the EVG, the whole governance of Zoom or virtual meetings on the Dub website, and we can't be defiant of it. I guess the best way to say it. We are already defiant of it by allowing chat. And we're already fairly defiant of it by allowing full participation. So I don't think we can be further defiant, but when I say I know we're defiant, I'm not sure anybody else in this Zoom room has even read the torturously long rules and regulations for running Zoom meetings. So our policy can't be totally not aligned with it, whatever it says now, because I think they probably keep updating it. So this is not a simple matter. I would like it to be resolved properly, because no matter what.
Laura, we're only at the 15th. If you're saying that the two of them cannot get together and write something up, that it has to be a public meeting, they can call a special meeting.
Yes, that's what I kept saying. That's what I said. I agree. That's what I said. If they're willing to do that, that's the right answer.
Because our next governing board meeting is on March 3rd. So that's
the next governing board meeting. Yes, the governing board meeting is March 3rd. If you wanted to bring the policy portion of this back to executive, it's March 15. But either way, they'd have to have a special meeting if they were bringing it, the how to do it, the policy thing. I thought what you're moving to governing board is just a simple matter of results of can they have the login or not. But you know,
no, it's not just the login. It's a getting a city account.
We have, okay. There is a city account.
Can we move on?
And can we move on? They only provided whatever date it was that Gibson sent also an email to Raheem. That's the first time we actually got it. It wasn't that long ago. I had been asking for it. Raheem did set up a Yahoo account. We never got it. It's a long, long, torturous process, but we've only had the actual Zoom account for less, since August or so.
Okay, so the action on this item is that you and Gabby and or Raheem are going to speak to someone above Gibson to find out about the login requirements for a city account. And they're also going to come up with some guidelines on how to use it. How they do that is up to that committee, but it's going to be brought before the governing board. So that's it.
Thank you.
Did you have something else,
Nope.
Teresa? Okay.
No, I just want to say that best practices, we can do what is best for us. Dunn doesn't want us to use times on our agenda. But when Gibson came, we said we're using times because it helps us manage our meetings better. So that Dunn provides regulations, but we can do what works best for us. That's all I want to say. I'm ready to move on also.
Well, communications can bring forward to us the best practice. Item G. Department of Neighborhood Empowerment election report, Lizzie. Lizzie, you still with us?
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Dolores. Hopefully this will not take too long, that we will all be agreeable to. So the NC elections, there's been a case raised by the Reseda Neighborhood Council on how basically commentary on the report issued on January 11th by Dunn and the city, signed by Raquel Beltran, the manager of Dunn, and they have very serious accusations, revelations about how the money has been spent for the 2021 neighborhood council elections, which I happened to chair this last time. There's been lots of challenges due to the pandemic, the political issues that prohibited us from working on our own elections outreach efforts via social media. Facebook banned, there was a moratorium on political ads, even though neighborhood councils are not considered, within the spectrum of the political or the national elections. So if you have read both documents, there is a series of very disturbing, I would say, accounts of how the money was spent. Some of them getting payments of $5,000 for a contract that was executed after the elections at some point. Some, I don't know, it's just very disturbing. Some 4 agencies that were awarded money for a handful of Twitter posts. Even KYCC is involved. They received $5,000 for outreach that happened in very irregular circumstances. So I think that at this point, and for us, we try to be very thrifty and conscientious about how to spend our money. We heard at some of the, when we had a meeting with the president, with Laura, and I believe it was Gibson, maybe, or maybe.
It was Gibson and Adriana.
They mentioned that Studio City Neighborhood Council was going to spend $5,000 of their budget.
10,000.
10, I believe it was 5, but could have been 10, which, threw us off the edge, because we don't have that kind of, we cannot afford to spend that kind of money. And if you read the documents, nothing was spent on us. They, for some reason, they decided to award contracts to support other neighborhood councils. We were not. And if you see the final outcome was that regions 9 and 10, which happened to be, of course, South LA, had a negative outcome in the voting turnout. I looked at our records, and for some miracle, we happen to have in 2019, we had about 95 votes altogether, 95 voters or ballots completed. In our last, in this last effort, there was actually an increase. So a very special circumstance results for our particular neighborhood council. But I think now they want to, they're asking for $1 million. And I think it is outrageous.
For what?
And I think we need to have, they want that money budgeted for the next cycle of the elections. And that is just outrageous. So the Reseda Neighborhood Council spent time doing serious investigation, and they have issued a CIS, and I believe that it should be our duty to support their efforts. They have requested answers to their concerns to Don, and by the beginning of February, I don't think it has been done yet. But I think at this point we need to take that kind of action and express support, and also to be more vigilant on how the money is going to be spent. Ask more questions.
So your action is that we support Reseda's CIS
Yes.
in what form?
It could be a letter. I don't think we need to issue our own CIS, or probably we do. What is the guidance of the executive committee?
Any comments?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how useful doing CISs are. The one thing is that they get posted on the city council agenda, but not really, not the 100 words or not the 2,000 characters. What just gets posted is up, these neighborhood councils support, these neighborhood councils oppose. If we just write a letter, that would not be on the agenda. So that's the pleasure of whoever. I mean, it's just as easy to do a CIS and upload it to the system. Especially if it's as short as, whereas there's so much, in other words, because of this, we support the Reseda. We applaud Reseda Neighborhood Council's investigation, and we support their CIS. I mean, it could be that simple.
Will this be going to the council or to the Empower LA commissioners?
No, city council. They're Don is requesting an additional $1 million plus, actually a little bit more, but the other parts are for something else. A supplemental budget from city council in the budgeting process. It's a bit complex. Departments are supposed to only ask for money that is offset by revenue, but Dunn has no revenue sources. So they have to go begging for all their money. So they're asking for a supplemental.
So
it'll be at city council at some point.
Any other comments? So Lizzie, you're asking that this be forwarded to the governing board to request a letter of support or CIS, a letter of support?
Or CIS.
CIS.
Okay.
Which one, a CIS or a letter?
A CIS.
Okay, so that would mean, Lizzie, we need to have it drafted in advance of posting that agenda, and I can discuss with you the requirements.
Yes, let's go for it, please.
Okay. That would be the action of the day for item G. So we're at item, if there's no further comments, let's move on to H, board member training update, and that is me. Everybody is up to date with the exception of 5 folks that's listed. And I sent an email out to everybody that it's showing on here that their certification has expired or it was about to expire this month. And I got a few responses back from a couple of people and they're on it. I see where they fixed it. There is one from Lolita Justice, where it shows that her ethics expiration has expired, but she's up to date on everything else. And I questioned this. I went back to the emails that she sent me. She sent me copies of everything, where her certificate for everything except for ethics. So I'm not quite sure what's happening with that. And I'll have to get in contact with her directly with regards to that. But we just have about 4 or 5 people that have not completed anti-bias training. And that's it, unless you have questions. Everybody's just about up to date, which is a good thing.
Everybody's just about ready to leave.
Huh? Oh, you mean
Everyone, Greg wants to leave. We're all ready to leave this meeting.
Okay, so in that case, we would have to table committee report, secretary's report, treasurer's report, old business, and then adjourn.
Yeah.
Except for setting the agenda for the governing board meeting.
Yeah, I didn't type anything up. It's the oil, the main planning and land use would be the oil drilling case that got deferred. And this item we just went through tonight on the Zoom. And I'm kind of at a loss because my brain is fried as to what other sort of not regular things are on the agenda. So the executive committee approves the agenda anyway. So I will endeavor to write something up earlier than usual for everyone to evaluate and approve. I don't know, Greg.
Emergency preparedness.
The funding for emergency preparedness. MER. No,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I just didn't write it up, but those, I'm looking at agendas. Nothing's jumping out at me as needing to be on the agenda other than those things I just said.
Okay.
Nothing specific.
I'm sorry, what, Greg?
I have nothing specific other than
Right.
I think the minutes should go at the beginning of the meeting. But that's an operational thing. But nothing
Okay,
new.
so these committee secretary and treasurer's report will be tabled to the next meeting, or will you want to run through these?
No, my only thing is just for the committees. We just like to hear from them and for them to share what's going on with their different committees. What are they accomplishing? What are they working on? So yeah, I would like to actually hear from them in the general meeting. The treasurer's stuff is, I'm just doing my stuff, updated the budget adjustment, and I'll just follow up on the other stuff. Yeah, so everything's fine.
Okay. Teresa, on the secretary's report, you want to table?
Yeah, we can table it. I don't care. I just want to come in on the committee thing. I wanted to give the committee an update on the tree report and give you some data on that. That was just released. So, but I can save that for next time too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Anybody?
Nope.
So we can call this meeting adjourned at 10 o'clock.
Okay, good night. Oh, the dog came in just in time.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.